So welcome to the Demystifying Microsoft Sentinel webinar. We're just going to do a quick intro. Just give me 1 second. So my name is Ivo Kazimirs. I'm a secure operations practice lead with CWSI. I've been with CWSI for the last 5 years, and my main focus is the security and security tooling that Microsoft offers currently. With me today, I have Juan, and I hand over to Juan to introduce yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Ivo. Hi, everyone. My name is Juan Idowu. I'm a technical specialist at Microsoft for security, compliance, and identity. So my job really is to, showcase the value of our solutions in helping to secure your estate. So lovely to be here. Thank you.
Thanks, Juan. So just quickly about today's agenda, I'm going to give a quick introduction about CWSI and who we are. And then we're going to cover current threat landscape and how Sentinel can assist in that particular current landscape. Then we're going to talk about why Microsoft Sentinel and the benefits of Microsoft Sentinel. And that's going to be covered by Juan. And then I'm going to cover briefly a getting started session with Sentinel. I'm going to do a quick demo on how to set up things and how to get started with some basic tooling. Juan's going to cover how to leverage Sentinel's latest features. And then we're going to talk about strategies to reduce costs and potential next steps from here for yourselves. So without further ado, a quick introduction about CWSI for those that don't know. Our main purpose has always been to enable the world to work securely from anywhere, any device and any application. So we started out many years ago as a mobile device management company focusing on mobile security and mobile device management. But as the threats in the world has evolved, remote working and working from anywhere has become more and more relevant. And obviously the security with it is quite important as well. So the company has evolved in that direction accordingly. We currently have offices across many locations in Europe. You can see them on the screen. Our main office is in Ireland, and then we have branch offices in UK, Netherlands, Luxembourg, and Belgium. So our company is split into 4 main pillars, and I'm just going to briefly cover the pillars themselves here. So the secure cloud pillar, which is what I look after mostly, it involves about secure working and all these tooling that's available in terms of XDR, Sentinel, and anything to protect your cloud environments. We also have a secure productivity pillar, which looks after mobile device management, and that is our kind of a heritage. And it looks after device management, it looks after device control, think about MDMs and tools like that. We have cyber strategy expertise, so GRC and advisory, so that is related to compliance and data management and all the purview suite that comes with it. And we also have a dedicated team that specializes in mobile app development. So they currently work with a lot of customers to do secure app development for a lot of government customers, a lot of police forces, hospitals, etc. So as every webinar that's related to security starts, there's always a setting the scene slide in here. So we're just going to talk briefly about the state of cybercrime and why are we talking about Sentinel and why are we talking about security tooling. So if you look at the digital defense report from Microsoft, which is available publicly for anybody that wants to delve deeper on any of these statistics, we can see that the human-operated ransomware attacks are up more than 200% from the previous year. Of all successful ransomware attacks, 80 to 90% originate from unmanaged devices, just highlighting the importance of having your device managed, having your device secured, and having your device monitored. And again, the shift is kind of changing. The large corporations have adapted security. So 70% of the organizations that encounter human-operated ransomware have fewer than 500 employees. So attackers have started shifting down and looking at the organizations where security is not quite there yet. Then moving on, identity is still a huge piece. So more than 99% of identity attacks are password attacks, and password-based attacks have spiked in 2024. And when we think about these password attacks, again, we need to think about the evolution of MFA or phishing-resistant credentials, etc. So 61% of those attacks lead to a sensitive user account, so that the lateral movement paths are always exposed. There's constantly evolving techniques in phishing. So emails sent to trusted third parties, OAuth application attacks have been trending very high last year and continuing on from this year. And there's a quite an interesting statistic. This is directly from Microsoft. The business email compromise attempts observed daily worldwide is 156,000. So 156,000 business email compromise attempts daily. That's a scary figure. And when we run attack simulation trainings with customers, we still see at least 10 to 15% customers still clicking that link and about 7 to 8% of those customers actually provide their credentials. So when we apply those percentages to that number, the exposure is quite high here, because again, we've spent the last 10 years telling people, do not click on a malicious link, but it's a Teams link or it's a OneNote link, people start ignoring it, get a little bit careless. So it is quite important to have security tooling to monitor for these items. So when we talk about the threat evolution, if you look back 10, 15 years, our threats are all very hardware-based. We had a perimeter firewall, we had our little Fort Knox, and we were controlling everything from there. But now we have secure working from remote areas. We have working from home. That's quite popular now. We have mobile devices. We have all the peripheral devices that have access to corporate data. So we can see that a lot more malware-less attacks and file-less attacks are becoming more prevalent. And the only way to identify them is a good XDR and SIEM solution. And this is where this kind of webinar fits into place, where Sentinel can help us with these scenarios. So as mentioned before, the attacks become more and more sophisticated, and I'm not going to delve too much into detail on these ones. This is just to give you a high-level overview of what a sophisticated attack looks like these days. So in the past, you would have deployed malware, and that would have affected your endpoint. It was a EDR tool, it was great, it was protecting you, or a specific email attack. But if I look at the typical human-operated ransomware campaign, it starts with a phishing link to an identity exposure, be that a no-auth application like a SaaS app. Then they get access to your endpoint, then lateral movements happens, then your cloud applications, and etc. So we can see that in a single attack, we're touching multiple different security toolings. So business email compromise is very similar again. So the end goal is data exfiltration. So again, it's going to be malicious email attacks, identity exposures, and then data exfiltration. So what we're gathering from here is that there are challenges that we've observed in modern IT, and most of those challenges are going to be broken down into these three pillars. So as I mentioned before, siloed technology. So the technology is great, and it's not vendor specific. An EDR solution is an EDR solution. It does its job very well. It's been around for many, many years. What we're seeing now is in a ransomware scenario where it's not just the endpoint that's being affected, it's the identity, it's the cloud application, it's everything else. So we need something to combine that story together and give you visibility of all the attacks coming in, give visibility of all the low-level alerts and how to utilize them, how to detect these attacks quite quickly. And Juan has some more information about that further on. But this is where Sentinel comes into place. It can combine all these log sources, all these data sources and signals into a single unified portal that can give you quite a lot of intelligence. And again, it speeds up your response time to everything else. The other thing we're seeing currently in challenges is cost management. So obviously, security is something that's only recently started to being budgeted in organizations, but it's still understaffed, under-resourced. The attackers are very sophisticated. If the malicious attackers were an organization, they would probably be the top organization in the world. They're very well funded, very well organized, and their single job is to breach your organization while you have many other jobs, and securing it is only one part of that, right? So you're always going to be on the back foot for this. And then there's burnout as well. So security teams just stretch too thin because you have, again, if you have siloed tools, you're looking at multiple consoles, you're looking at endless alerts, you have no automation in place. You need something, again, to help you do that SIEM and SOAR solution that can help you reduce the noise alerts, the alert noise and the alert fatigue, and help you tackle that burnout. So why Microsoft Sentinel? I'm going to hand this over to Juan, and she's going to talk us through the benefits of using Sentinel in this scenario. You should have control there now, Juan.
Okay, let me see. Okay, yes, I do. Thank you so much, Ivo. So yes, as Ivo has rightly said, right, there is so much there's so much currently happening in terms of securing the data estate, securing organizations, and there's so much fatigue for analysts, right, security analysts in managing like the security operations center and all of that. Now, this is where Microsoft Sentinel comes in place. For those of us, for the benefit of those of us who do not know so much about Sentinel or who are like new to the platform, we will discuss what is even Microsoft Sentinel, right? Sorry, I seem to have lost control. Yeah, thank you. So yes, Sentinel really is that scalable security information and incident management, uh, portal, right? So it literally gives you intelligent and comprehensive solutions for CM, and also it allows you to pull signals from various solutions, be it your firewall solutions, your, even your Defender XDR solutions from third-party, platforms that you currently use. You're able to pull signals from all of that, security signals, and you're able to analyze them, right? You have access to see how threat actors are actually moving within your organizations, how they're pulling data, how they're able to, easily spot unusual activities within your environment. And you do not just have access to, view incidents and events, right, and manage those incidents and events, but then you also have the capabilities with Sentinel for security orchestration and automation response, right? So you're able to create playbooks that, once the system notices a certain pattern, right, those playbooks are able to kick in and then take the necessary actions to contain that threat, right? So Microsoft Sentinel, basically, it provides cyber threat detection, investigation, response, and proactive hunting. So with a bird's eye view across your enterprise. Now, what I love about Sentinel is the fact that, sorry, Ivo, could you help switch to the, yeah, for some reason I've lost control. Right. So with Sentinel, we are able to protect our organization, right? So like I said earlier, we're able to simply onboard data from our various sources. In the image you see over here, we see, like, Microsoft Defender XDR. We're able to pull signals from Defender XDR, all the solutions that you currently use. So it could be Defender for identity, Defender for Office 365, Defender for endpoints. You're able to see, okay, unusual activities happening across these solutions, right? And then it's not just the solutions, you also get the ability to pull signals as well from third-party partners, right? So, and then, your multi-cloud solutions and all of that. So we have inbuilt with Sentinel, we have over 300 out-of-box connectors that basically helps you to focus your investigation on what matters, right? So we also have customizable content, right? So you're able to create use cases, you're able to, create threat-specific content, really, that just allows you to be able to take the necessary actions while carrying out an investigation. Now, with Sentinel as well, we're enabled to move faster in addressing threat issues, right? So like I mentioned earlier, we have out-of-the-box and customizable automations, right? So you can take advantage of, playbooks. We actually have templates for playbooks that you can easily get up and running. You do not need to start all the way from scratch, right? So we have logic apps that you can easily take advantage of, and then you're able to easily investigate your environment, investigate threats, and then take the necessary remediation actions. Sentinel is also built with generative AI. So in the world today, everyone is buzzing about AI, right? So how can we take advantage of AI in order to investigate and take the necessary actions to threats, right? And this is where Copilot for Security comes in place. So now we have Copilot for Security embedded with Sentinel, and it helps you to easily investigate. It helps you to easily analyze threat events, right? And then make the necessary actions, right? So, and because normally an analyst will spend, hours trying to analyze a security incident, trying to, connect incidents together, and then, basically be able to say, okay, yes, we have a case, we need to, go after this threat actor, we need to block, or we need to take these necessary actions. But now with generative AI and with machine learning, right, you're able to take the necessary actions in due time. And then we also have increased return on investment, right? So with Sentinel, you can now easily move from your legacy SIEM solutions, right? And then move all of that to the cloud. And the advantage of this is, aside the fact that you'll be saving at least 40% of cost in terms of, making that migration to the cloud, you're also able to take advantage of the cloud capabilities. You can scale up or scale up, scale out as required, right? And then, we also have targeted optimization recommendations. So we'll see a bit more about that in a few minutes, right? So we have recommendations on how you can better improve your, your rules, or better improve your security posture, better improve, how you use Sentinel. And once you carry those recommended steps, you can then actually cut down on costs, right? So you're focusing on what matters while also getting return on investment. And then we also have tiered storage solutions and options, right? So for those of us who are used to, Sentinel, or have used Sentinel, or have read about Sentinel in the past, you will be familiar with, like, the basic logs, the analytics logs, and all of that. Now, we also have other options where you're able to store data for longer, but then you do not have to compromise in terms of how much you spend, right? Ivo would speak to us a bit more. He has like a dedicated deck for that, so he will speak to us a bit more about that shortly. Yeah. Now, this page literally summarizes all that we say about Sentinel, right? So we're able to accelerate resolution and improve outcomes across the security lifecycle, right? And the way we do this is, first, we collect and optimize, right? Like we mentioned earlier, we're gathering data from all of your sources with unlimited cloud speed and scale. And the great thing about this is we're not just gathering data from your data sources. You can actually take advantage of, the Microsoft Defender threat intelligence connectors, right? So you're able to pull in data from Microsoft's actual SOC and then get to analyze event logs in your environment against that data. We'll learn a bit more about that shortly. And then you're able to monitor and detect, right? So you can detect anomalies early with user entity and behavior analytics, right? So you'll notice lateral movements in your environment. You notice, like, okay, for example, Ivo had mentioned, business email compromise earlier being on the rise, right? And then you notice like unusual behavior for VIP users within your organization. You can actually get that bird's eye view and take the necessary actions to remediate that, right? And this is where investigation comes in place. So an amazing thing that we recently announced, I will speak more on that shortly, right? So now we're able to correlate alerts. So alerts that have, entities, similar entities within them. So it could be, maybe the generating IP is similar, or the generating sender, or the, the pattern at which that threat actor is moving within the organization. The system is able to notice those patterns and then actually correlate those alerts into prioritized incidents. And then you're able to get the full picture of an alert and of an attack, and then take the necessary actions. And finally, we are able to respond. So like we mentioned earlier, Sentinel has built-in SOAR capabilities, which is security orchestration and automation response, right? So you're able to instantly take advantage of logic apps, build your logic apps, put in place your playbooks that instantly kick in when, a threat actor has been identified and has been confirmed, and then the necessary actions are taken in place to quickly take that actor out and then make the necessary updates as required. So, and then the great thing about this is, as my next slide would show, right, don't just take our word for it. Gartner report has actually confirmed Microsoft Sentinel to be, one of the top actors and one of the top leaders actually in the CM space, right? So Gartner has recognized Microsoft as a leader in the just recently released 2024 Magic Quadrant, actually, for security incident and event management solutions. So this really should then let you know that, if you're not already considering Sentinel, then you probably should. Thank you. So over to you, Ivo, to show us a quick view of the Sentinel dashboard.
Thank you, Anne. Before I jump into it, I'd just like to mention as well, if anybody has any questions, feel free to pop them into chat, and we can look to answer them straight away. I do see somebody has raised a question earlier, just to you, Juan, around the threat intelligence connector that you mentioned. Is that free to ingest into Sentinel?
Yes, the threat intelligence connector that we mentioned earlier, it is free. We have the free version, and then there's the premium version. So if you're looking to ingest even more threat intelligence details and all of that from the Microsoft SOC, then you can also take advantage of the premium. But then it's not compulsory you use the premium. You can start with the free version, and then you get to see how that plays out in your environment, and then take the necessary actions.
Right, so you can use that data from the threat intelligence to scan your environment against the indicators that Microsoft have collected. That's fantastic. Thanks for that. So as I mentioned, any other questions, please do drop them in the chat and we'll look to answer them as soon as we can. And I'll move on to my section. So how to get started with Microsoft Sentinel. I'm going to cover very briefly a quick demo, and bear with me because live demos always go well and nothing goes wrong. So if I jump into the console, so very quickly to get started with Sentinel, it's actually quite simple. We go to our Azure portal, we search for Microsoft Sentinel, which brings us to this screen here. And as you can see, I have an environment already set up, but all you would have to do is go ahead and create an instance, and it straight away prompts you, hey, go ahead and create a new workspace. So everything you do in Sentinel is based around a log analytics workspace. And there's a few key things to look at the minute you create that workspace. So we're going to talk about cost control a little bit later, but one of the things that I'd like to talk about straight away is the default retention in Sentinel is 30 days, but the analytics log data storage is free for up to 90 days. So straight out of the bat, the first thing you should do is go and change that retention. As you can see there, the workspace default is 30 days. You can change retention for individual tables, which is great. So if I want to store my Azure activity for 12 years, I can do that. I can do that on a table basis. I can go ahead and edit a specific table, and I can create separate retention for this particular table. Or what I could really do is, and what the first thing anybody that starts Sentinel should do is go straight away into your overview, go into your costs, and go to data retention and change that default retention to 90 days. There's no additional cost for this. It's included in the Sentinel plan. So why not utilize the data when it's there? So jumping over to Sentinel, and let me just close this all off. So this is the page you got to get landed with. So Sentinel is very different from XDR. XDR comes pre-canned, everything is there for you, and there's a lot of noise and data coming in. Sentinel is blank. When you first open it, there's absolutely nothing in it, which is kind of beautiful because that means you can get to decide what goes in it. So the very first thing you need to do is connect some data. And to do that, you have to install some connectors. So there's a content hub, as Juan mentioned, in Sentinel. There are over 300 standalone content available that you can directly install into Sentinel. So, and the first thing you would do is, if I want to connect to Enter ID, I'm going to search for Enter ID, and I'm going to go ahead and install the Enter ID data connector. So I've done that currently already. Once you've installed it, that doesn't mean it's active in your environment. As you can see here, I have multiple connectors. Some of them are gray, some of them are green. Green just means that data is being ingested through that connector. So if I look at my Microsoft Enter ID connector, I can see what data I'm ingesting. So when I look at the connector page itself, and connecting things is really simple. So it straight away tells you what permissions are required and tells me I have sufficient permissions to do it. Great. I get to decide what tables I'm going to ingest, select them and save, and that's it. Once you apply those changes, it does all the background work for you, and data is coming in into Sentinel straight away. You can see the tables that are collected. You can see a quick graph of what data is coming in, how many logs are coming in. This is the test tenant. There's not a lot of noise, so it looks very, very clean and bland, but you will see a lot more data in it. So then the next step really is, I have now Sentinel, I'm ingesting data, what do I do with it? Then you have something called analytics, and this is the rules, how incidents are getting generated. And again, when you first start with Sentinel, this is going to be completely blank. There's going to be one rule in it, the default rule, and everything else in there needs to be configured by you. It seems like a lot of work, but it doesn't have to be. Again, when we install the data connector for Enter ID, so let me show you quickly here. It doesn't come just with a data connector of its own. It comes with pre-installed 11 playbooks, so the automation playbooks Juan mentioned, 64 analytic rules and 2 workbooks. So that means when I go to my analytics rules, I can actually go to my templates and I can deploy those rules directly from a template. You can see there's rules available in here from Microsoft Enter ID. And to deploy a rule, it's as simple as reading the description, understanding if this applies to your environment. Is this something you want to monitor? I go ahead and create a rule, and everything is pre-populated for you. So this is as easy as clicking next, 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 and changing anything you want to change in it. You can create, save, and great. That rule now is active. That rule is used to scan my data, as you saw probably briefly in the screenshot. It's going to scan data every 5 minutes. Now, this is the out-of-the-box solution. It's great. It does a lot of things already. What about custom scenarios that you might have specific business use cases for you? And one of the things I like to do with customers is talk about monitoring your audit logs. So you can do that as well. You can use the log explorer to identify specific areas. So you can see I've pre-populated a query here. But for example, if I was to separate this out and let me bring this down, if I want to query the audit logs table, I can specify a time frame, and I can just run the data. So all of my audit logs are coming in here. So from here, I can start exploring the data and look at things that interest me. So if I want to have a specific rule that does something, for example, I can see there's a policy. Somebody's added a policy and go, okay, well, that's very interesting. Category policy. All I have to do is right-click it, click includes, and that automatically generates my KQL query. So even KQL being its own language, I don't have to be an expert at it. I can use quite a lot of this tooling to get quite a nice state. So at this point, it didn't return anything here because, again, there was nothing available for us. But one of the things we will do is we'll look at an audit log, and we're going to look to search for conditional access changes. So as you know, as we talked about identity is very important, and conditional access is a great tool for locking down your tenants. And changes to any conditional access policies should be monitored, probably reviewed by change control, and make sure that they're legitimate changes. So I'm going to search my audit log, and I'm going to say, hey, where the service that's currently logging it is conditional access. So I can see, yes, I have data returned, and in this case, the data returned is quite detailed. There's a lot of information in here, and I can do something with it, right? So again, it might be complicated for you to read. If we start expanding these JSON strings, there's quite a lot of data in here. We can see all the modified properties. We can see all this stuff in here, which is great. But what we also can do is we can narrow this down. We can use the project operator to further remove the noise and only show the fields like here. So you can see I've pre-selected it here. I want to see when it was generated, what was the operation name, the result, tenant, and the operation type, and then who initiated the change. So if I run the full query here, now I'm returning a much smaller data set. As you can see, it's much more readable. I can see the operation name is somebody added the conditional policy that was successfully done. I can see that was done. The conditional access policy's name is seated beside Sentinel event. A very a coincidence, I guess. And then the user itself, the initiator is myself. You can see here, and I have also included further details where I can see what conditions this was applied to. I can see that's applied to all applications for all platforms. Great. We can also see what the ground controls are. So I'm saying I'm requesting MFA, and then I can even look as far as to see the state. The state currently is enabled for reporting, but not enforced, so it's read-only. So we know that that's not a risk. Somebody's applied a read-only policy to do some testing. Now, how do I go about monitoring and automating this? I don't want to come in here and search the logs every day or every week. All I have to do is right straight from the query. I can go new alert rule, a Microsoft Sentinel alert. And we're into that wizard that we saw earlier that was pre-populated, and we can generate our own analytics rules. So I'm going to say monitor for conditional access changes. We can put in a description. We can put in a severity. In my case, I don't think it's a high severity, and it's going to be informational because again, I'm using this as validation. I can map it to specific MITRE attack techniques. So if I had to map it to a malicious activity, probably would be defense evasion. Then I can go into the rule logic. So automatically you can see this has been pre-populated, and I can test the current data, which is really good. And also what it does is validates your query, so the query is not going to go wrong. And you can see that out of the average alerts per day will be 0.096. There's only one change in the last time frame that they've analyzed here. We can also do some entity mapping and custom details, so we can enhance those alerts, and that's a bit more complex, and you can learn from the pre-canned rules that are available. And then we can decide how often I want to run this. Well, actually, conditional access changes might be something I want to see every hour, and we're looking for data for every hour again. Start running automatically. We don't want a specific time. And then the alert threshold is, again, in some cases you might want to say I want to see at least 5 results before I'm saying it's an alert. In this case, I want to see every change, so I'm going to leave the alert threshold at 0. So we can group all the events into a single alert. So when we think about really noisy events that have a lot of data coming in, we want that in the single alert so we can investigate it. And then from here on, we're going to go ahead and enable the incidents. We can attach some automation, as Jan mentioned, the logic apps if we wanted to, but for now, let's keep it simple. I'm going to go ahead and hit rewrite and create. And that's it. That's from start to finish where we went to explore a log analytics table. We found an activity that interests us. We refine the activity, and then we create the rule on the specific activity to be notified about it all the time. When we talk about automation, we can take out-of-the-box automations that can send a Teams message, an email, so you don't have to go into Sentinel and keep checking for incidents. You can actually even go as far as creating email approval flows. Say, you know, email received, conditional access change detected, approve or deny the change. You approve, the incident can auto-close. You deny, that can be escalated and investigated further. So again, with automation and the flexibility that Sentinel offers, creativity is really quite important here, right? So it's not out of the box, and a lot of things can be done here, and a lot of automation can be put in place. But again, it's all about reducing that the draw on the security teams to do manual investigations. So use automation as far as you can. So that kind of covers my demo. What I'll do now is I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and Joanne's going to cover the next section for me.
Yeah. Okay, so can you see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, yeah. So now we'll be discussing some of the latest Microsoft Sentinel features, right? Ivo has already shown us like a brilliant view of Microsoft Sentinel and then what is possible with Sentinel. Now, some of the new changes that are coming or you may have noticed is now available to you. So one of the updates that I am really excited about is the fact that we now have the Unified Security Operations Platform available. For those of us who may ask, what is this, right? So basically, the Unified SecOps Platform is like a merge of Defender XDR, Microsoft Sentinel, and then Security Copilot all together, right? So you're now able to take advantage of all of the functionalities of Defender, Sentinel, and Copilot as one in carrying out investigations, taking the necessary actions on, incidents, and then on safeguarding your environment, right? So our vision, Microsoft's vision really for the Unified SecOps platform is literally a platform that keeps customers safer and makes the job of an analyst easier, right? We've received lots of feedback from, various organizations, from various teams saying that, it's difficult to keep an eye of what is happening of security incidents when they're trying to, navigate from platform to platform, right? So now with the Unified SecOps platform, you have that bird's eye view. You can easily work with your connectors. You can easily, review threat intelligence data. You can easily build your, rules or even query data all from that one platform. We'll see a bit more about that shortly. Another new thing that's now globally available is the Microsoft Defender Threat Intelligence Data Connectors. Now, earlier, Ivo did show us how to use connectors, how to actually connect, take advantage of data connectors in Microsoft Sentinel. Now, one great connector that we advise you to take advantage of, right, if possible, would be the Defender Threat Intelligence Data Connectors. Now, these are tools that allow you to import threat intelligence data into Sentinel from Microsoft's very own SOC. I think we mentioned that earlier, right? So these connectors help you basically to monitor, alert, and hunt for threats using indicators of compromise. Now, such as this could be IP addresses, they could be domains, URLs, and file hashes. Because, even over here at Microsoft, we literally analyze around 78 trillion threat signals daily. So taking advantage of and then having this threat connectors connected to your Sentinel, you're now able to take advantage of the intelligence that our team has access to and then use this in making security decisions. Now, another globally available feature is the Microsoft Defender Threat Intelligence Analytics rules. Now, these rules are literally built into Sentinel and designed to enhance the threat detection within your environment by leveraging threat intelligence data, the data that you have pulled in from the previously mentioned data connector. Now, these rules, they match indicators of compromise, right, with your ingested logs. So with logs in your event logs, and then in order to create high fidelity alerts and incidents. And then another new update is incident correlation. Now, for those of us who may not be aware and be like, okay, what is this, right? A great result really of the unified SecOps platform is this functionality. Now, what happens is that Sentinel automatically merges alerts that have similar threat indicators as one. And then this gives you the ability to just focus on what really matters. Now, incident correlation would normally happen in like two scenarios. The first scenario would be when an alert is, sufficiently unique across all alert sources within a particular time frame. So when that happens, Defender XDR automatically creates a new incident and then adds that alert to it. So going forward, if there are similar alerts that fit that same scope, right, that have similar threat indicators, it could be like, it's originating from the same IP address and the same file hash is being used and all of that, then it brings all of those alerts into that incident going forward. Another scenario where incident correlation could happen is, when an alert is sufficiently related to other alerts. Now, from the same source, it could be alerts from the same source and then across sources within a particular time frame. Then Defender XDR adds the existing alert to that incident. So the correlation does not stop when an incident is actually created. Defender XDR continues to detect commonalities and relationships between incidents and between alerts across incidents. And it's really a great functionality that we advise, that we believe would make SOC utilization and SOC operations a lot easier and better. Another great update that we have available is the SOC optimization. We mentioned this earlier. So literally SOC optimization enables you and your team to optimize your processes and outcomes by providing tailored and actionable recommendations based on your organization's, your unique environment, right? And the idea behind this is we're trying to make sure that you are building your Sentinel platform to work best for you. And then also the ultimate goal also is really to help save costs, right? You want to see return on investment. You want to make sure that you're only spending on what is relevant. You're only, pulling data from the required sources and connectors and all of that. And then an update that is in preview at the moment is auxiliary logs. Ivo would actually speak to us a lot more about the auxiliary logs in a few minutes, right? But basically, with logs, we are redefining the way customers collect, store, and access security data. Now, we're starting to eliminate blind spots for SOC teams and enabling them to quickly search massive volumes of data over long time horizons. Now, with auxiliary, log plan, it is designed to help you ingest large quantity of high volume data and logs at lower costs. I'm sure that rang a bell in most of our minds because we're like, okay, what's the cost implication of that? You do actually spend less with auxiliary logs. And like I mentioned earlier, Ivo would speak to us a bit more about this. But now I'm just going to switch to a demo to show us some of the new updates that I have spoken about. Can you see my screen?
Sorry, yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. Thanks. Okay, yeah. So now this is the unified SecOps platform that we spoke about earlier. For some of us, we might look at it and say, oh yeah, but this is the same Defender XDR portal. Yes, it is actually. Now you can access this from security.microsoft.com, and then this gives you access to, of course, we have the home page where you're able to see like a quick overview of your entire security estate. Scrolling down over here, we have the SOC optimizations. We also have Microsoft Sentinel automation rules. So you have like a quick view of your automation rules, and then you can also manage your connectors right from this page, right from the home page, right? And then it just gives you that quick and easy view and access to manage your security estate from this portal. Now, at the left-hand side under investigation and response, we have the incidents and alerts. Now, what happens here is, so I have an alert that I already had pre-opened, right? So I can easily, based on incident correlation that we mentioned earlier. So once a threat is identified, once an alert is registered, right? So like we mentioned earlier, when there are similarities in those alerts, they then get grouped into incidents. And then you can also, if you notice an alert should be a part of an incident and it isn't, you can also actually come into that alert and then move the alert to another incident. Then we also have incidents. When you're looking through your incident view, you can actually then get like a high level understanding of what is actually happening. You can see the attack story. Sorry, this is a demo environment, so I do not have lots of data in there. But then this is just like a general overview of what you would see from the unified portal. You can easily access your alerts. You can get access to see what assets are actually affected by this incident, right? And then you can also view similar incidents. Then one other amazing feature that we now have available is you can actually link alerts to cases. So you can build a case, link incidents to cases. So you can build a case based on an incident, right? Then earlier we spoke about the access to the Microsoft Defender Threat Intelligence Analytics rules. So just like Ivo showed earlier, Ivo showed us the view from the Microsoft Sentinel portal, the native portal in the Azure dashboard, right? But then from the Unified SecOps platform, you can also access analytics rules just by clicking on Microsoft Sentinel. It's the same page really. So I select Microsoft Sentinel and then select analytics. Then you can easily search for that analytics rule and then add it to your environment, create the rule within your environment. The same goes for data connectors. I would click on data connectors over here, and I have the page open to avoid lags. So I have my data connector here, and then we mentioned earlier about the Microsoft Defender Threat Intelligence connector. So you have it here. You can easily connect with this. You can easily open the connector page, add it to your Sentinel, and start to take advantage of it and make use of it, right, as required. And like we mentioned earlier, so this connector actually allows you to take advantage of Microsoft's threat intelligence, because like I said, we are literally analyzing over 70 trillion threat signals every day. So you're able to take advantage of those threat signals, you're able to take advantage of that intelligence and then use that in analyzing your environment. And then finally, we have the SOC optimization. So it's still from the unified portal. I just had to click on SOC optimization. Sorry, I pre-opened most of these pages to avoid lags. So from SOC optimization page, you're able to see various recommendations. For example, right, so here it says we have low usage of this particular table, the device image loads events. Now, it gives you a description that, oh, we've noticed that there are no analytics rules or detections using this table for the last 30 days. And this allows you as a security team to then decide, do we really need to be ingesting data from this table? If we haven't used it in the past 30 days, then why are we connecting to this table? And then you're able to take the necessary actions and help to save costs. So it's really an amazing thing what we can do and the functionalities and capabilities that are made available to us using the Unified SecOps platform. So now I'll hand back over to you, Ivo, to speak to us a bit more about cost optimizations. Thank you.
Thanks, Jan. So just before I jump in, there was a quick question around the incident correlation. So will incident correlation occur if the incidents eligible for merging are assigned to different people?
No, it wouldn't actually. So an incident correlation would not occur in that scenario. It would also not occur if the status of an incident or an alert is set to closed. So it will not, correlate the incidents at that point. Or if two incidents actually happen to contain devices in different organization groups, device groups, right? So incident correlation will not occur in those instances. And the great thing about this is, of course, we have resources online, so you get to understand, okay, what is incident correlation? How would this actually be relevant to my organization as required?
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Jan.
Thanks.
So following straight on from Jan's session about cost control, there's a couple of areas I want to cover. So one of the first things to think about is when we talk about data ingestion and data ingestion costs in Sentinel, because again, Sentinel is not a licensed product. All the cost is generated based on data ingestion and data analysis. There are a lot of free data sources available. So if anybody's thinking about starting to use Sentinel or starting to use Sentinel even as an enhancement tool to your existing scene, because it is cloud native, you can integrate quite well with all the XDR products. You could do that quite freely without incurring any costs, really. So when we look about Azure activity logs, so when we think about Azure, anything you create in Azure, anything you change, those logs are free ingestible. And one of the main things to look at that is if you think about a couple of years ago, there was a great, oh, not great, a horrible attack, I suppose, exploit against customers. But it's a great example of this, is where they used to log into your Azure portal, generate a lot of expensive resources to do Bitcoin mining, right? So you could set up alerts on the Azure activity to alert you for expensive resource creation at no cost currently. Sentinel Health Ingestion is free. The productivity apps, so 365 audit logs, including SharePoint, Exchange, admin activity, and Teams. So all of that is free ingestible data as well. All the security alerts, obviously, because of the SecOps portal combination, anything from the XDR product suite is ingested for free as well. And then same goes for alerts for Defender for Cloud apps and Defender for Clouds. So there's quite a lot of data to get started here. If you want to investigate how I can utilize Sentinel as an add-on, or if I'm starting greenfield and I don't have a SIEM, how I can start using a SIEM, how I can implement it in my business. It doesn't have to be this this scary big thing where we sit down and plan it for 3 months and then spend another 6 months implementing. We could start utilizing some of these features quite quickly. Even the features that we showed in the demo, they're easy to set up, they're quick to set up, and you can start seeing the benefits for them already. So the other thing when we talk about cost control is, as Juan kind of mentioned, in the SOC optimization, when SOC optimization tells you, hey, you haven't used this table for 30 days, there's a decision to be made there, right? So the first question comes to mind is, do I need this table, or am I doing something wrong? So, either I need to analyze it and start looking for threats in that table, or maybe I'm using that table for storage, for auditing purposes, and I shouldn't pay the premium price for it. And what I want to do is, this is a very, very busy slide, I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but just to give you kind of an overview of the tiers available. So analytics tier is the primary tier, the default tier, that allows you to do the full Sentinel suite. As I mentioned, up to 90 days interactive retention is free. All table types supported, and this costing is based on a US tenant, so you can investigate directly in specific tenants what the cost would be for you. But just to give you a comparison, it's $4.30 per gigabyte. Then we're looking at basic logs. Basic logs are either basic tables or DCRs. There is some limitations in terms of interactive retention. The KQL queries capabilities are reduced, but you can see the cost is a quarter of that of an analytic log. So in the past, when we think about compliance or auditing purposes, we would have stored them as basic logs, because obviously they're a lot cheaper to store. I can still execute search queries. So past 30 days, I can't do analytics rules, but I can do search queries. I can issue a search job. So if an incident happens and I have storage and basic logs that I need to investigate, I can issue a search job and access those logs and give me that full picture. Now, the new preview feature is something called the auxiliary logs. You can see the price difference between an auxiliary log and an analytics log is huge, right? The factor is absolutely massive. It is reduced functionality, similar to basic logs. In fact, they're very, very similar to basic logs. Search jobs is a big thing here. But when we look at use cases where we would use these type of logs, we have to think about the low impact security logs. So your firewall logs, your proxy logs, your really busy, high volume traffic sort of log data sources. You don't necessarily want to analyze them through analytics because that is quite a lot of data, and you can obviously, but it's going to cost you quite a lot of money. But you still want that data that if you've detected a breach, you need to understand the full picture. You need to understand what was happening from a network perspective. So this is where you can issue a search job in your auxiliary logs that are costing you a fraction of an analytics log and still get that data, still get that picture and visibility. There's also something called the summary rules, which lets you summarize some of that data, and it's a bit more complex, but it basically does, you can aggregate data and put it into your analytics logs. So when we're planning our design, it's very important to understand the different tiers of log tables available. And I've left the ADX in here as well. That is a bit more complex. These are the Azure sources when we think about machine learning and things like that. The different storage types apply to it. But the first 3 log tiers are currently available in Sentinel. The aux logs are in preview, so they are limited to DCR, so data collection rule-based tables. But they are evolving. They're constantly working on it. And as Johan said, the auxiliary logs have only been out a couple of months really, and we already see a huge uptake in them. So with that in mind, how do we utilize that data? And I love this flow chart because it's very, very simple. It's the decision-making chart. Is primary, when we ingest the data, the first question is it primary security data? Is it like user sign-ins or anything like that? If it's yes, it's an analytics log. We want to investigate that data, we want to analyze it. If it's not, what's the use case for that data, right? When we think about that table we didn't use, if it's compliance, let's put it in auxiliary logs. If it's SOC analysis scenarios, well, then there's a couple of different things we need to consider. Are we using log stage, dribble, building, or an Azure function? If yes, it goes into aux logs. If no, because of the DCR rule collection support, it will go into basic logs. So again, we can quickly decide what are we going to do with our data and tier it correctly so that the cost is minimized on you. So jumping on into the next steps, and I'm conscious on time that we seem to like to talk about Sentinel quite a lot. 5 minutes left in the webinar. And one of the things I wanted to talk about was the engagement from Microsoft. So Microsoft currently funds an engagement for modern SecOps. And this is, there is a potential that your organization could be eligible to have this engagement fully funded by Microsoft. And you can obviously get in touch with us to try and validate and understand if you are. And if you're not, we can still help you with this as well. What this engagement really does is it walks through a basic setup of Sentinel. And as you can see here, it covers 8 different modules. Sorry, 10, I can't count anymore. So 5 of these modules are mandatory, 5 are selectable, but you could go through all of them. And when we look at the areas covered, we have our mandatory modules, the XDR integration with SecOps, which is what Johan just showed us recently, the identity threat detection, communication collaboration for all your Office 365 tooling, Azure threat detection, we're looking at your Azure tenant and everything that goes on there. And also the threat intelligence data connector, which Johan spoke about quite a lot, and I've seen it in action. It's actually quite powerful because it allows you to scan all your data across 365 and Azure against those threat indicators, and it's very, very important to understand how it works. And again, it just gives you that little bit of information. And it also supports third-party services. It doesn't have to be Microsoft Threat Intelligence, but the Threat Intelligence Connector is great, so you can start with that and try and understand the business case for it. Then from the selectable modules, we have the server threat detection, so we can ingest server event logs and do some analytics around that. And also, you can get quite a lot of information on the event logs themselves and trends. We have workbooks that will show you login trends or the server network trends or anything like that. The other piece is the third-party logs. So we spoke a lot about data connectors, which is great. We have 300 something data connectors out of the box. That doesn't mean that there's a limitation if the connector doesn't exist. Anything that uses syslog or CEF log format, we can ingest that, right? So we can use any switch, any firewall, any appliance, even a printer if you like, and because most of these tools will support syslog or CEF. All you would do is you would deploy a Linux box with the Azure monitoring agent on it, create data collection rules, and those logs can be ingested in Sentinel. You can analyze them, You can store them, whatever you need to do with them. So just again, the more sensors you ingest, the bigger the picture is that you can see. The other areas we touch on is stock automation. So this is the logic apps, the logic apps that you can create to automate some of the activities, investigations, or reporting. Sentinel cost estimation, we've spoken a lot about that, but there's also workbooks available to analyze your costs in Sentinel. And then data ingestion and retention. And again, this will be around the tables that we've just covered and how to monitor them, how to configure them correctly, and how to decide on what data should go in what table. So the whole engagement's kind of boxed off then. Afterwards, it's a results presentation and a decommission if the customer chooses. So it's quite nice. It gives you a lot of Sentinel insight. It takes about a total of 25 to 40 hours in the engagement. So it gives you quite a lot of information. And if you are eligible for the Microsoft funding engagement, all of the costing is covered by Microsoft. They give you actually a trial subscription where you can deploy all this data here. So that covers everything I had. So I'll leave the contact details on screen. Obviously, if you want to find out more information, do reach out and we'll help you with anything we can. I did want to check that there's no questions currently that we need to cover. Let me just give me 2 seconds. Fantastic, thank you. Sorry, we have a moderator in the background who's very shy, and she's been very kind to organize everything, so thank you very much for that. Thanks everybody for joining today. Hope that was useful. And again, if any information required, do reach out to myself or Juan, and have a good afternoon. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.